Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Eons of Battle. I have played most games that Games Workshop has ever made. Some of them are some of them are fine, and some of them are very interesting, like Warhammer 40k. Even though it's such a big, obtuse war game, it's really fun to list build and to be a part of that community, all trying to figure out how to make this wacky game work. But I would say I've played a lot of board games, and I've played most other miniature war games out there, and Games Workshop games usually aren't the most fun. But recently, I tried Spearhead, Age of Sigmar's Combat Patrol. I think that Games Workshop accidentally made a good game. Games Workshop games, there's a thing to them. Usually, Games Workshop, there's always this rumor that the Games Workshop is a model company first. They make cool miniatures and they make a game so that you have a reason and excuse to actually buy the miniatures. Spearhead is actually fun. And tabletop war games are usually, they're in an interesting place game-wise, because usually they're very onerous on the people actually trying to play them. You need to figure out the terrain, you need to figure out the board layouts, you need to figure out what makes the game good, you need to play to your strengths, you need to figure out what units are good. I can't take those, I should take these need to go from my list, these should be in my list, these are out of stock, I wish they weren't out of stock so that I could have them. You almost need to learn everything about the game before you can actually start to have some real fun with the game. Spearhead is actually good. It blew my mind. We had a bunch of armies to play the Spearhead with, and so we tried it out. And the first time you play a war game, you stumble through it. You have to double check every single rule. You have to reread the rule. The first game usually takes hours upon hours as you're just working through the game trying to get it into your brain. Spearhead just clicked. Spearhead was great. Okay. So Spearhead is Age of Sigmar's Combat Patrol. If anyone is familiar with Warhammer 40,000, Combat Patrol is those boxes that you can buy that have a bunch of units shoved in them. And in theory, Combat Patrol is a game mode where you can purchase 2 Combat Patrols and then play them essentially as a 500-point game of Warhammer 40,000, but you only take the units that are in those boxes with the loadouts that those boxes tell you to build. Games Workshop says that this is a balanced, fun way to play Warhammer 40,000. I've played in a kill team tournament. I have looked at every single Combat Patrol they've ever made. Nope, Combat Patrol is awful. It's so bad. The points and the units are all over the place. Some Combat Patrols come with really good stuff. Some of them don't. Some Combat Patrols are like maybe 300 points of units, but some Combat Patrols like Adeptus Custodes is like 700 points if you build it just right. The power level is way wrong. It's not a fun system. There's no interesting thing when it comes to actually playing Combat Patrol. It's basically just, here's the lists, figure out terrain, figure out the board, there's like a very generic mission that you're meant to play Combat Patrol with. It's really, really bad. But I would say that 40k learned some valuable lessons with 10th edition, where you've got your secondary deck, you've got your primary deck, you've got your mission deck, and so you use those to make the game more interesting, even beyond what units you take and what the board looks like. But it falls short in a few places, and I think Spearhead actually perfected the system. It's really, really good. So the way you play Spearhead is you have the Spearhead book, and this has all of the rules for every single faction. And I think Games Workshop was slightly generous in that if you bought Skaventide, it has rules for the Skaventide models, but it also has rules for the older versions. So like if you bought Dominion, then you have those rules, extra rules for those particular models, and you have the rules for the Cruel Boys. We played a lot with Nick's Cruel Boys, and it was really, really good. So you pick your faction, but almost more importantly, this board that comes in Skaventide, and you can buy it separately, it has the objectives printed on it, and it's double-sided. So if you flip it over, this is the red side, and if you flip it over, there's the green side. The objectives are printed in different places, so that's one way to have more ways to play the game. But they also come with these decks, the twists, and these are how you score points. So there's 3 primary ways of scoring points: hold 1 objective, hold more than 1 objective, hold more objectives than your opponents. Each of those are worth 1 point a turn. But then there's these twists, and these twists aren't always about scoring points. Sometimes they're just weird things that can happen in the game. The green deck is a little bit more friendly. Like there's friendlier ways of scoring points, friendlier ways of movement benefits, different abilities that you can give to your units. The red deck is the murder deck. It is all about killing and being violent and charging and murder. Like, just these 2 decks alone on the 2 sides of the board already gives a lot of playability to this game. And then you can move on to your secondary objective decks, your battle tactics. These are brilliant because number one, if you're ever played with the Leviathan mission deck or now the Pariah Nexus mission deck in 40k, you know that it'll have a way for you to score more points. These are all worth 1 point if you can get them off, and it's kind of the normal stuff. Kill a leader, be on the long side of the board, have units on the short side of the board. But if you find that you can't get a certain thing off, you don't just have to sit there and be like, I had a really bad turn 1 draw, so looks like I'm just gonna lose the game because I can't do my missions. They also have a secondary ability, which is a buff to make your guys better. So and sometimes you'll be like, I could score the 1 point, or I could have a secondary effect that makes my army better. And some of them are really spicy. One of them is if you have a cavalry or infantry unit with more than 5 models, you can and they've died over the course of the game, you can bring D3 of them back to life as a new unit. That's really fun. Like, that's one of those moments in a war game that you're gonna remember. It's like, remember when you wiped my Cruel Boy squad, but then they came back to life and scored me 3 more points over the course of the game? Like, there's some really fun stuff with these cards. And you draw 3 of them a turn. And so not only do you have access to potentially 3 more points if you can pull them off, but you have access to 3 abilities to make your army cooler and better. And I think this is such a better way than command points for a small game like Spearhead. Command points, in going back to the mess that is Combat Patrol for 40k, you have access to command points that you can spend every turn, just like in regular 40k, but really you only do tank shock, throw grenades, or Overwatch, because when you have a small number of models, getting extra free shooting and free attacks is just better. It's just better than anything you could possibly do. And another big problem with 40k is shooting. 40k is a shockingly lethal game with short-range weapons having 24 inches, so beyond the entire board. Everything just shoots turn 1, things die turn 1. It's a mess. In Age of Sigmar is a stabby game. You run around punching and stabbing. There's a little bit of shooting, but it doesn't really even do much. The Cruel Boys have access to the Man Skewer. And no, wait, these guys are the Man Skewer. There's a bigger skewer that it's like really, really good at killing monsters. Not a lot of monsters in the Vanguard / Spearhead boxes, so it's pretty much just going to be like nuking 1 single miniature a turn. And sometimes that's really powerful, but sometimes like, it's just, who cares? It's not going to do much. Like Spearhead and Vanguard boxes, we're kind of in a weird spot with Age of Sigmar where previously they called their combat patrols Vanguard, but now they're called Spearhead. So anything that says Vanguard or Spearhead, it's the same exact thing. They're all in this book, but it works so well because the board is small, but you want to run around and get into close combat and punch. Sometimes you want to leave close combats. Just one thing I love about Age of Sigmar in 40k, this is going to be a very just ragging on games 40k video. In 40k, if you want to fall back from combat, you just do it. You just walk away. It's nothing is more frustrating than when my Black Templar charged Sean and I'm just stabbing and punching and doing my Black Templar business. And then it's Sean's turn. He's like, okay, so my guys are going to walk away. No penalty. I mean, I guess they can't shoot later, but you shouldn't just get to walk away. In Age of Sigmar, if you want to just walk away, you roll a d3 and that's how many mortal wounds you take. That's a little something. Like if we're going to make a retreat, we're going to take a couple of spearheads, if you will. Like we're going to get hurt a little bit. I think that's a perfect way to handle it. And it just makes the game flow really nicely. The game takes place over the course of 4 rounds, which is very nice. I mean, brand spanking new to the game. I think we played 2 games. Both of them lasted about an hour. Like, that's how long it should take. Like when you're playing a board game, the fun thing about a board game is typically, there's some board games that take all day, but usually board games are done in an hour or 2. And Spearhead is done probably, I can't imagine it taking much more than an hour. It's also a low point scoring game, which I don't like. Like in 40k, when a perfect game is 100 points and you're trying to think of like, okay, I'm scoring 5 for that, 7 on primary, and then like 3 for this, and you like you have to keep a piece of paper next to you to write down how many points you're getting to keep track of it, or there's an app that's annoying to use. Like I can count to 24. Yeah, 24. 24 is a perfect score. I can count to 24. It just works so well. And you know, maximum you can score on primary is 4 points, or no, 3 points. Now you could score 4 points on primary because technically these secondary cards are part of primary. Each of these is only worth 1 point. So you don't have to be like, oh my gosh, I drew investigate signals. How am I gonna get all 8 points for this? Or how am I gonna get all 5 points for this? No, it's only worth 1 point. Maybe you might as well just do the special benefit because you really wanna punch Sean in the face. Like, it's so much fun. The game works beautifully. Very, very rarely we play a lot of games here at Eon's Battle HQ. And usually it's like we play a tabletop war game and it's like, that was fun. Let's play Yahtzee. Like, that's usually what happens. Tabletop war games are fun, but there's a lot to do. After playing 2 games of Spearhead, we were all like, whoa, that was actually good. And then we went to the game store and each bought a Spearhead box because we want to keep playing it. And not only is there great replayability with the way the board works and the way that these objectives and secondary objectives work, but there's 24 different factions. So for me, I got Ogre Maw Tribes. I've always had my eye on Ogre Maw Tribes. Lucas over at Squidmar is painting some of the most beautiful miniatures I've ever seen for Ogre Maw Tribes, and I'm really jealous, so I want to do it too. Like, also, this box is triple thick. Look at this thing. I don't even know what's in there. I mean, the thing's on the picture, but how is it this thick? I'm just excited to see what that's about. I really, really like these guys. I'm excited to try them out. I don't know, it's gonna take me a long, I'm a very slow builder, but luckily everybody else isn't. Nick got Spearhead Flesh Eater Courts, the new faction for Age of Sigmar. Technically it's a refresh of an old faction, but they feel really new because almost every single model got a refresh. These guys look super fun. They're vampires who are like zombified, like they're monstrous vampires. Technically they're the Flesh Eater Courts. They think they're high lords and ladies, but in reality they're ghouls. They're just spooky little ghouls. These guys look like a lot of fun. A friend of ours got the Night Haunts, which, speaking of Night Haunts, Games Workshop actually tried to balance, or I think they might have balanced this game, because boxes with weaker units like Night Haunt, the piddly skeleton, or the piddly ghosty guys, they have the reinforcements keyword. And so the reinforcement keyword means if that unit's wiped, you can bring on another unit that's exactly the same, which actually balances the game. These guys are weaker, but you get more units, but you don't get more units to make you overpowered. If your unit dies, you get them back. So it's not like you're flooding the board with all of these models turn 1. If it happens, you get your guys back. Like, it's balance. It's an actual mechanic to make the game more balanced. That works. It's crazy. It's crazy that this is a Games Workshop game that works so well. One box that I don't have here is Sean got for himself Soulblight Gravelords, the Soulblop Bleep Blops, the vampires, like the real vampires, the actual, like, the cool, like the classic Nosferatu vampires. And he's working on getting those all built so that we can play them this weekend. Well, I mean, we're technically all doing that. There's no chance I'm gonna get to this box this weekend, but that's okay because I'm working on my Sylvaneth. It turns out that I am 1 unit away from having the Spearhead for the Sylvaneth, and I'm really excited to give them a try. Like, the game's just fun. It's so weird to have a war game that just works so well. I played everything. I played like tons of 40k, Malifaux, like so much stuff, and they're fun. I love these games, but this is a good game. It's a perfect game. It's super simple. It's easy to explain. It uses the core rules from Age of Sigmar, but the rules for Age of Sigmar are very good. Shooting isn't oppressive in this game at all. It's all about the punching, and even your punching isn't ultra powerful. Most things hit on 3s or 4s. Most things wound on 3s or 4s. So, you know, it's always, you're not going to be wiping out units. In all 4 of our games, neither of us were, or in all 2 of our games, none of us was wiped. There weren't a lot of feel bad moments, and the feel bad moments are actually helped a little bit by Age of Sigmar's underdog mechanic. The person who's losing on points gets to have benefits to their unit. Their guys punch, they can pick a unit to punch a little bit better. And so you're always kind of gonna be neck and neck. My first game against Nick, I lost by just a couple of points. And then my second game with Sean, I won by just a couple of points. And every turn, I was scoring primary, I was scoring secondary, I was killing maybe a unit or sometimes just a couple of models in that turn. It was always fun, it was always engaging, it was always exciting, and I'm really excited to keep going with it. And also, a lot of the wind in my sails has been taken out for playing 40k proper. I probably will still build up my Sylvaneth army and play some games of proper Age of Sigmar, but I mean, why do that when I can do Spearhead? Like, I love my Sylvaneth, but I'm excited for this Ogre Matrize box and what amazing hobby potential this is gonna bring for me. And when I'm done with this, maybe I'll dip my toe into a little Caradron Overlord. Maybe I'll do a little Daughters of Cain. Like, I get to experience all of these little things. And another big bummer when building a proper faction for a big game like 40k or Age of Sigmar is that I kind of mentioned at the beginning. I like this unit, but I should be taking this unit. There's no options in Combat Patrol Spearhead. If you like the models that are in the box, you only have to worry about those models. Like, there's some Spearheads that don't have models that interest me that much, like Lumineth Realm Lords. So I just don't buy that box, but I love all of these models. So I just get this box. Like Seraphon, the dinosaur people. Like, there's a bunch of things in the Seraphon that I really, really like. And there's a bunch of units that, like, I don't want to paint a bunch of skinks and chameleons, but I want to paint a bunch of Saurus Warriors. And if I only have to paint Saurus Warriors and then I get to play them in a really fun game, it's great. Spearhead is just really, really good. I can't recommend it enough. It's so much fun. It's a breath of fresh air. I still love the spit out of 40k and will continue my competitive 40k journey. But you better believe I'm gonna be doing Spearhead to wind down. I'm gonna be doing Spearhead to just have fun with my friends. It's a really, really good game. I like Spearhead like almost as much as I love our Patreon. Ever wanted to fight your battles in the labyrinthine hallways of a starship, moving your models in tight formation through a maze of corridors, bulkheads, and junctions where retreat is impossible and danger is around every corner? Well, the Eons of Battle Starship Interior is here to make that dream a reality. For the month of July, subscribers to our Patreon will receive the Starship Interior, a set of claustrophobic, dynamic, and modular hallways that are scaled to perfectly suit wargaming miniatures and give you a new way to play. I am loving Spearhead, and you'll notice that I have the Spearhead board and terrain because I got the Skaventide box, and stay tuned for Wednesday's video where I'm going to be painting up the entirety of the Skaven faction. By the way, Skaven and Spearhead, really fun. Oh, I'm excited for more Spearhead. Let me know in the comments below. I'm sure most people, like a lot of people know 40, like play 40k or 30k, and you know that Age of Sigmar exists, but you haven't really been tempted by it because you don't want to collect like an entire another army. But are you tempted by Spearhead? Like one box? You just look at the boxes, see which one appeals to you, and be like, I could maybe do that. I could maybe put together one box and then get to try out a really fun game. Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.